That's the other presentation.
It's okay. It's going to start. Yes, perfect. Hello, everybody in the room and online. My name is Rana Adib from Renton One, and I'm very happy to welcome you to this event organized Circular Energy Solutions, Biogas at the Heart of the Net Zero Transition, which is hosted and co-hosted by the World Biogas Association and the World Green Economy Organization. You see, okay, your moderator is actually in a very warm temperature, and apparently, but we're here with a lot of good energy, and we're looking forward to interesting discussions. So, I'm actually going to kick you off a bit from Renton one side to basically situate where biogas is standing in the energy transition. First of all, let me quickly start to say who's Renton One, also because the World Biogas Association is a member. We're a global network of over 120 institutional organizations, members from governments, industry, science, academia, NGOs, and a community of 4,000 plus players. What is interesting about Renton One is we're dedicated to building a renewable-based economy. Why a renewable-based economy and not just spreading renewables? Because actually the reality is that we need to not only change our energy system, but it is an opportunity to build resilient and strong economies and resilient societies and fair societies. Um, how do we do this? Together with our members, with knowledge, intel, dialogues, and debates, because we also need to raise the awareness and change basically the norm to some extent, communication, and then clearly to create the enabling environment for a renewable based economy for prosperous societies. Now, let me come to the question which we're really interested in, the role of biogas in the energy transition. This is the picture today, and the picture today unfortunately showed that even though we constantly have record installations in terms of modern renewables, we still depend heavily on fossil fuel. 80% in 30 years is basically coming from fossil fuel, and it's really fundamental to acknowledge all the advancements because renewable energy today is a least cost option, so we have the solution, and still structural challenges are holding us back. So renewables is basically meeting 13.5% of the global energy demand. Um, and I think what is important for the biogas discussion is actually that half of it, so close to 8%, is on electricity, but also when we're looking into renewable energy heat and biofuel for transportation, obviously biomass and bioenergy and biogas play a key role. Next message is renewables in electricity is topping. Today, over 90% of new installed capacities in electricity comes from renewables because it is the least cost option and it's the best option. And still, we consume 80% basically of our energy for heating in the buildings and industry and for transport. And this means that a lot of this will be electrified. We also are very aware of the fact that we need more than electricity for some energy sectors. Now, bioenergy is one of the solutions for those, for some of the sectors, and you can already see it by the fact that, for instance, when we're looking at bioenergy in the industry sector, over 11% basically does come from bioenergy. So this is from modern bioenergy, which is clearly an advancing sector with regard to this. We see, however, also that when we're looking at electricity, for instance, it is not so present. And I think this is basically where, let me jump to the next one, where I think we need to also look into not only how bioenergy and biogas and biomass are solutions to basically provide renewable energy. Okay, to be honest, for the ones online, it's very noisy here. We have a competition of an event next to us, so I hope that you can hear me. And that you don't have the impression that I'm yelling at you. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just trying to get the message along. So I guess like what is really important is to see that biogas is not only about a renewable energy, but biogas is actually a really important complement to complement basically variable renewables, solar PV and wind. That is basically the two technologies that are clearly contributing to record advancement of renewable in the power sector. When we are speaking about grids with high shares of renewables and high shares of variable renewables, bringing basically dispatchable energy to the grid is something that is real value because it is foundationally, it's essential to really move to 100% renewable electricity grids or high share of renewable electricity in the grid. So I think it's something as a message to the biogas folks, I guess, and players is you're not only a renewable energy, you also have a value to bring to the energy systems. And this brings me just to the fact that biogas is to some extent under-considered. Here I'm showing you on the left side, basically biogas and biomethane present only 3% of the total bioenergy consumption. When you're looking to the right side, you see the media mention of wind, of solar PV, and of biogas. The gray one is biogas. So I do think it's, when you look at this, it basically means that even though there is definitely a role for biogas, you see, and there is a massive potential for it, and certainly also some needs from the energy system side, it's not on the forefront nor of the public debate not from the policymakers. And I think this is a gap which I'm looking forward to also discuss later during the panel discussion with our players. You know what? I'm just going to jump to, because I think that Charlotte, you're certainly going to speak about biogas as a versatile solution, so I don't need to do this. And I just want to show that we do see regional differences, and these regional differences also come from the fact that the policy frameworks are quite different here. I think what is really important is that when we're looking at biogas, it's very often not only the national policy level, but also subnational and the city level. So this one part. We clearly see that, for instance, in the EU, this is something that is being pushed forward. And so I take the example of Denmark, for instance, 40% of biomethane in its gas grids, targets of 100% by 2030 already. 2030 is in 5 years' time, which also shows it is possible with the right policies to do these things. And what is also important is to clearly recognize that biogas is not only an energy, but it's also a solution for waste, if you like, so really at the heart of circular economy. And that's definitely also something that is at the forefront in developing emerging economies. And I think we'll also learn more about this later. So, sustainability as a path ahead. There is roles to play for biogas, but there are also challenges. And I'm looking forward to hear from our experts, actually from the biogas sector, to hear how you're addressing some of those challenges and how you pitch biogas to the global community. Thank you. And I'm actually asking Charlotte to join me here. And I think we're going to switch computers, Charlotte, right? Yes. Yeah, sorry. So we're basically showing resilience here directly because when the network is not working, we find solutions. So Charlotte Martin from the World Biogas Association.
Oh, thank you so much, Rana. And good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Great. I'm delighted to be with you and to talk about the role of biogas, why it is so important, and how we can go about facilitating and accelerating the growth rate of the industry. First, let me just give a quick overview of the World Biogas Association. We are the association that represents the biogas industry at a global level, and our role is to facilitate the growth of the industry and to facilitate our members to deliver all the value that as society we so depend on. So just to start, to make it clear, we humans generate over 105 billion tons of organic waste every year. That's in the form of our own sewage, food waste, animal manures and slurries, etc. And the vast majority of those are not being recycled. Today we're recycling about 2%. However, all of these, all of this organic material, if it isn't being treated, is emitting methane as it breaks down. And we all know that methane is 86 times more potent a greenhouse gas than CO2. So it is absolutely critical that we focus on delivering this. And on the right-hand side, you can see how the emissions break down per type of organic waste and the potential to deliver a reduction of 11% of global greenhouse gas emissions if we're successful in recycling just those organic wastes that are reasonably capturable. So why is biogas so globally critical? Well, actually, in all of that organic material, and it was great, Rana, you talked about the sort of biogas in the context of other renewables. In all of that organic material, we've got about a third of today's fossil gas demand. So it is a huge volume of energy within there that is currently being wasted. We can reduce global greenhouse gas emissions by 11%, and crucially, we can deliver half of the global methane pledge. And why is that so important? Because that can keep global temperatures down by 0.15 of a degree. So in the context of the Paris Agreement, 0.15 degree is 10% of the 1.5 degree target. But it doesn't just stop there. All of that organic material also contains valuable nutrients and organic matter that it's so critical we get back to soil for future food security and to restore our depleted soils. And of course, wastes that are not properly managed are causing human health issues and all sorts and environmental problems in addition to the fact that we're wasting them. And of course, all of those organic wastes, they're an economic opportunity. So whatever your views on the climate, whatever your views on the environment, it is a massive economic opportunity that will create 10 to 15 million jobs worldwide and create supply chains in the process that are valuable for every country. Now the good news is that the industry is actually growing pretty fast. This slide was produced 2 or 3 years ago and shows that the combined annual growth rate of the industry is already pretty exciting. We're looking at over 8.5% as an annual growth rate. So if you're an investor in any sector, you'd be pretty excited by that. But if we're going to meet the global methane pledge, actually that's the growth rate we need to achieve. That pretty stellar hockey stick curve. And if you look at the growth rate on the previous slide that I said was exciting, well, actually, that looks pretty flat along the bottom. So we've got our work cut out for us. How are we going to achieve that growth rate that is existentially necessary for us to achieve to meet the global methane pledge? Well, that's what we at the World Biogas Association have been focusing on. How can we facilitate, or what can we do to ensure that hundreds of thousands of high-performing biogas plants and related infrastructure are built by 2030? Given that in many parts of the world it takes as much as 2 to 5 years to get a permit for one plant, I realise that we have to think very differently if we're going to make this happen. So this is where our Making Biogas Happen programme comes in. It's all about facilitating the scale-up of the biogas industry as fast, safely and professionally as possible. Why do we need it? Because in many countries, even in the countries which have a successful biogas industry, there still isn't the most supportive, enabling environment with the right policies, regulations and standards to ensure that project developers are able to put projects together that are capable of meeting financial close. In phase 1 of this program, we were fortunate to have the support of the Global Methane Hub, Total Energies. We've got to get rid of this little thing here. Can't do that. Escape. Try that. Yes. Global Methane Hub, Total Energies, GHD, and DLA Piper. We developed a model global biogas regulatory framework and an international anaerobic digestion certification scheme. I'll tell you more about those in a minute. And in phase 2, we're directly working with state governments to use these tools and adapt them to develop a biogas action plan in each of those states that will ensure the delivery of the rate of growth we need to see within the context, as I say, of a biogas action plan, using the policy and regulatory framework that we developed. So the Global Biogas Regulatory Framework has 9 pillars. It covers all of the policy standards and regulations across the whole supply chain that are needed for successful development of projects. It takes the best practice examples from around the world and was consulted on by stakeholders from over 50 countries to ensure that we had the best feed-in as possible. And another thing that is really crucial here is that it promotes regulatory harmonization. If you speak to many developers operating on a global scale, they really struggle with the fact that in every country they're trying to operate in, the policies, standards and regulations are different. So to put together a project that's going to meet financial close is just difficult. The AD Certification Scheme International sets minimum health and safety standards and operational standards for AD plants to ensure that each plant is designed, operated professionally and to maximize the delivery and the value they're able to extract from those organic wastes, and most crucially to ensure that investors are getting the returns that they need. If we don't ensure that investors are getting the returns they need, then they'll stop investing in the sector. So it's really important to ensure that every plant is delivering as much value as possible and ensuring the safety of all stakeholders involved and minimizing methane emissions as well. So you can see on here the list of the 11 modules, and I'll also highlight the one at the bottom, which is another program that we're about to start, which is about developing a standardized methodology for calculating the life cycle, the LCA, for specifically for biogas. This will need to be in line with IMO, ICAO, ISCCC guidelines, but it will ensure that every plant developer is financially incentivized for maximizing the performance of each plant and maximizing the decarbonisation every plant is able to achieve. So where have we got to on phase 2? The objective, as I said, is to use the Model Global Biogas Regulatory Framework and international ADCS to create clear and actionable biogas plans, action plans to scale the local biogas industry sustainably, effectively and commercially. We're starting with 2 states in India and 2 states in Brazil. And at the end of the day, the objective is to deliver state-level biogas action plans in each of the states concerned, and to ensure that there is an AD certification scheme applicable to the regulations in that state. It will cover all the full range of biogases, including biogas obviously, but also biomethane, bio-CO2, bio-LPG, RDME. It will cover sustainable organic waste management and cover, of course, the recycling of the organic material in the form of digestate back to soil. And I've already highlighted ensuring we link to carbon markets to ensure the financial and economic return. We're partnering with the states concerned. We've signed MOUs already with the state of Sao Paulo and Madhya Pradesh in India. 2 other states about to be signed in Gujarat and Paraná. It is absolutely essential as part of that process that we involve all relevant stakeholders, and we build on the existing work that's already being done to ensure that we align with state priorities. In terms of next steps, we set up a steering committee which will bring together the key stakeholders and create buy-in for the action plan we're about to develop. And out of that, we will develop a work plan, an engagement plan. The next step is to carry out a gap analysis to look at what policies and standards already exist in that state, and then do a comparison and benchmarking against the Global Biogas Regulatory Framework to ensure that we can see where the gaps are and what needs to be done to ensure that there is an enabling environment. The next step is to align on the vision for that state. What is it that we are looking to achieve in that state? What's the potential? What are the economic opportunities? What's the opportunities for the supply chain? And create an agreed vision for the biogas action plan in that state. And then the next step is to work slowly towards developing, or carefully towards developing, the biogas action plan, ensuring that we are filling in the gaps on policies, regulations and standards, developing the ADCS for that particular state, modelling the supply chain, looking at the finance requirements, looking at the capacity building requirements to make sure that everything is in place to facilitate the scaling of the industry in that state. I've just covered the key components of the biogas action plan that I've got on this slide, so I won't repeat it. But the last thing just to cover is to make sure that we have a monitoring and evaluation framework to ensure that ultimately the plan is being executed and delivered and kept on track. So I think I'll leave it there. One last thing. Yeah, the ambition is to ensure that through the Making Biogas Happen programme, we can get every country to have a biogas action plan at the local level, and we're able to build strategic partnerships to ensure that that can happen. And we mobilise global funding as well to ensure that we can implement it at a scale across the world. I will leave it there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Charlotte. I think we can clearly see the massive potential of biogas. We also see certain technicalities. So I'm really looking forward to ask you some of the questions, how we bring this back to people who might be less experts. But I'm also really very much looking forward to have now Clovis Zapata from UNIDO joining me here and sharing basically some concrete projects or feedback on some projects where biogas is happening and going more into activities on the ground. Clovis.
Hello, can you hear me? Yep. Well, good afternoon. First of all, let me say it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to talk about this very relevant subject. I would like to thank the World Biogas Association for the invitation, as well as the. Can you stand okay? Closer? Yep. Okay. As well as the World Green Economy Organization for hosting us this evening. So I will take the opportunity to present a very concrete example of a project that we have implemented here in Brazil. And may I say, it goes in line with many of the subjects that have been put forward by the previous presenters. Um, the first issue, I think it's important in this presentation is to see the great potential that biogas has in a country like Brazil and the growth that the market has shown, as well as some of the most relevant elements related to public policy that were necessary to make biogas move forward. So this is a project called Jeff Biogas Brazil project. This is coordinated by the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation of Brazil. So they're really the main, I would say, coordinators of this initiative when it started. The beginning of the project was in 2014 when we had a request from the ministry along with Itaipu Binacional, as they have identified the waste issue that they have in Paraná State, and then we structured the project around this subject. So the project is implemented by UNIDO. We got some funding from the Global Environment Facility, and the main organization that implemented the project along with UNIDO has been CI Biogas. They are also based in Itaipu Binacional, and they have been the main technical counterpart for this initiative. So just in like a general overview of the project. So we received some resources from the Global Environment Facility, around $7.2 million to establish the project. We also had some Brazilian co-financing of around 263 million. And then the idea of the project, when it was first established, was to first look into the normative and the public policy aspect of it, then a value chain development, and third, a business model assessment and development. So these were the three main pillars of the project were initially identified. by the project with a wide number of goals that were set up in the beginning. Obviously, we're looking at the reduction of greenhouse emissions. We're also looking at enhancing the capacity and the innovation potential of local actors to really use biogas as a mean, enhance circular economy, as well as to provide greater competitiveness for the agro sector. Uh, we have obviously framed this under circular economy, obviously biogas, biomethane, and how this has been utilized in the project really fits into the general concept of circular economy for both um, residues from the agro industry as well as residues from the urban waste. So the project started actually looking at the residues from the agro sector, which were the ones that were the initial request. However, the tools that have been designed in the project, they really were used also for urban residues. And basically, the project had the focus of establishing very robust business models. And for urban waste, we have some very interesting solutions that came from the project. So this is a bit echoes your presentation here. We're looking at the evolution of the biogas market in Brazil. We're still not reaching that target, but it's been a very important growth in the market. So it's about 21% per year that has been grown in the last 5 years, which is quite a lot. So when the project started, we had less than 200 biogas plants in the country. And now we have something of around 1,700, which is an important growth. But naturally, if you look at the size of Brazil and the potential, is still a very small percentage of what could be achieved. Um, so the project really looked at the value chain of biogas, looking at different feedstocks, different sorts of production technologies, as well as how the biogas can be used to add value to that specific technology, and a large focus on the development of business models. And this is very relevant for this project, is that in the beginning we have identified that most of the potential, we use the expression users of biogas, they had difficulties to understand how the biogas and the different technologies would fit into their existing business models. So they would say, oh, my core business is not producing biogas. This is something extra. It's something additional. And then the project really looked into this, is how different methods could be used to add value to that production that already existed. And then you see the different applications that were applied and studied, and this made many of the pilot projects much more comfortable to really use biogas as an important source of energy for them. So, as I have said, there was a large focus on business model development, both collecting data from companies. There was some modeling that was done, as well as some economic and financial evaluation of the biogas plant, adding to what they already have. And in this aspect, the governance is very important as well, because all the other actors that are involved in the process that can gain from this from the application. So in the project, we have produced a wide number of materials that are freely available. Most of them are in Portuguese, looking at different methodologies, areas related to the technological roadmap that was used. And in this aspect, I think it's important to highlight the large potential for job creations in the region. And this is absolutely fantastic that biogas has. So the project, and this has been a study carried out by CI Biogas, and basically, if we compare different sorts of energy sources, looking at oil, hydroelectric, solar, wind, and biogas, for the states that we applied the project, which were the two main ones, Santa Catarina and Paraná, the potential for job creation was much larger than solar, which is the second largest one. So this is very, very good results. And when this study came out, there was a lot of media attention in Brazil because obviously this is a very relevant aspect of energy applications in Brazil. So we had a very wide number of project partners that were involved in the project, and this is perhaps one of the most robust features of the project is that we were able to get very large associations, large companies, medium companies, and startups involved, as well as academia, which is very important in this scenario. So the project was applied mostly in the south of Brazil, in the states of Paraná and Santa Catarina. We also had some plants in Rio Grande do Sul, but we did some studies for the northeast and the central region of Brazil, specifically with waste from from the urban sector, yes, municipal solid waste. The project also had a capacity building programming where more than 10,000 people were trained in the project. And we also had a chapter of the project which is called tropicalization programming. This is a translation from a Portuguese expression, which is basically to adapt a foreign technology to Brazil. And we had an open call for startups that would be willing to work in Brazil or to bring specific technologies to Brazil. We studied the supply chain of biogas in the country and looking at different equipments. And so we had a large interest from a wide number of companies, most of them from Europe. We also had companies from Japan and China also involved in this process. So the main results of the project are obviously the resources. We were able to really get a large co-financing for the project. We had established some important demonstration units. We have developed the business models, and this, from my perspective, is really the center of what the project has developed. There is the tropicalization programming that I mentioned before, as well as the capacity building of all the professionals involved. And one of the most relevant follow-ups of this project has been that we have a very strong connection with the government of Brazil. A steering committee has been set up from the beginning of the project. This has been led brilliantly by the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation. They did a fantastic job, both coordinating the other ministries involved, as well as being part of the project, leading the technological development as well as the application. But this steering committee has been very important because the government of Brazil has really been able to understand what the sector needed in terms of public policy to make it move forward. And this has been something that has been important. We have a wide number of regulatory, I would say, developments that came out of this project, both for the states of Paraná and for the federal government. here, for example, we have a picture of the interministerial unit that was set up. We also did some studies for municipal solid waste, as I mentioned, for São Paulo, Florianopolis, and other cities. And we have an online tool which can be accessed in this link. And this, when the project is finished, this will stay because this is going to be taken up by Sebrae. So that's it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Clovis. And I think it's always great to see how things are happening on the ground and concrete examples. I think we'll just I'll ask both of you to quickly join me here because I have directly some follow-up questions for you. And this mic is louder than the others, so let's, okay. I think, let's be honest, quite amazing what you have pulled together as a sectoral activity. I think with Make Biogas, Make Biogas Happen, right? Making Biogas Happen initiative, and also the material that can really allow to scale up solutions. Really interesting, and also, I mean, very similar activities to some extent you see on the policy regulator frameworks bringing players together from Brazil. Now, let me challenge you a bit. How do we now make sure you have seen some of the media analysis which I've shown? And I will come to the questions we have prepared, but I just would like you're going very deep, and this is what you need to do to deliver on sectoral strategies and make projects happen. At the same time, many decision makers are no biogas experts. How do you translate those things into strategies that allow to put it on the forefront of global, regional, national energy transition agendas, waste agendas, industrialization agendas, circular economy, because you're touching upon so many topics. So I would be really curious to hear if you have short recommendations. Charlotte.
Well, I think the example that UNIDO has shown here mirrors our own, the importance of bringing together the various different departments involved, because they've all got a really key role to play. So they need to understand what their role is and work together to deliver the end result. But that's why you need that steering committee. You need to bring people together. You need to get them aligned on the vision of the possible, because it's an incredibly exciting vision. So I think once they can see that, and they can see the economic opportunities, the job opportunities, that becomes politically then much more something that you can get buy-in for. But there's also a key point that you've got to get them around that table in the first place. So this is where there's a constant need to educate politicians, to make the case. It's one of the reasons that we are part of the Clean Energy Ministerial, for example, and that we produce reports to show why it's so important. And the case studies that are done also they show that it can be done, and they show to other countries and other politicians that it is possible. And the more that you can create the tools to facilitate it happening in different countries, the more you can start to persuade people that not just is it potential, it is also deliverable and executable. So it takes work, but you need to find all the different opportunities to do it, but it is possible. I'm sure you've got ideas too.
Okay, this is a very interesting point, actually. I think that the project is really successful because we were able to involve the main ministries from the beginning.
This has been very important
Because knowledge was developed with them. It's not something that we have developed ourselves as UNIDO and we just went to the ministry and said, okay, this is what we have to do. was a joint discovery of this field. And this has been very relevant because they were able to really understand what the business models were about, what the sector needed, what sort of changes in terms of the tax system, which is very complicated. What changes were necessary from the state level in terms of environmental regulations, how waste can be transported, for instance, from one property to another, because that changes a lot, how the scheme can be structured. This has been important. The training is also very relevant. I think there is a necessity for constant training. This is very important because politicians change, you have new people coming in, sometimes people come in with different ideas. They may not fully understand what the technology is about, but they always understand the potential for job creation. They understand the successful cases. They see that it applies well for large companies and small applications as well. So if they perceive that there's benefit or economic or social and environmental benefit, I think it's much more easy to really discuss and negotiate.
Let me directly allow a question in this service because I think it's really interesting. I mean, I have some biogas active background, so I understand your points. But if I put the hat on of somebody who is not in the sector, it's not directly accessible. Now, the way you frame this is super attractive. Did you put efforts into, because both of you have put efforts into the regulatory technical part, the technical framework, the standardization setup, which are all really important. Please don't misunderstand me, they are fundamental. But the narrative building part and the advocacy part is not layered. So I would be really curious to hear whether you have those basically, or let's start with Brazil, because here you have this case study very successfully. Did you try to translate it into a narrative that would help basically the whole sector to go around and convince other policymakers to engage here?
I think that in the case of the biogas specifically, the way the project started was we had an environmental issue that translated directly into the economic problem during the situation. So they really understood from the beginning that more such an economic issue that needed to be solved centrally. Obviously, biogas is a solution. It's not a simple solution. It's not something that you can just plug it in and it's going to work. No, you totally understand the importance of it, how it fits to different business models, to different applications. So in that respect, I think it's easier for you to really present the narrative to the wider public. In the case of they had, before the project started, a few years before, they had some very negative experiences with biogas. So in the beginning, many of the people involved or associations, they were really not that much interested in biogas because they had a bad experience in the past where basically companies came to Brazil and they sold a machine and said, this is fantastic, you just plug it in and it's going to work. It's not that simple. You need somebody to provide maintenance, you need somebody that knows the right mixture, and in that respect, I believe that the project was very successful to do that because it really changed the perception of the sector in regards to the technology. So I think we are now in a very interesting scenario to basically scale up the adoption of biogas to different parts of the country.
Thank you. Charlotte, building on this and probably also the link again to making biogas happen initiative. I mean, these are excellent examples, right, that also allow you to tell a strong story to decision makers so what are next steps, I think? Do you look into narrative building too? And what are the key challenges you would basically say, like, these are the 3 things we really need to tackle as a priority?
Well, the key point about the necessity of bringing people with you is always going to be there, and the staff changes, constant need to educate people, take them to a biogas facility so they can see it. There's nothing, seeing is believing. But then I think this is where it is so important to have, for example, minimum health and safety standards standardized as much as possible. And I think the anaerobic digestion certification scheme, my understanding from speaking to CI Biogas, for example, is that is one of the things they are most excited about the Making Biogas Happen program, because we have to make sure that every biogas plant is designed, built, and operated well and delivering for investors, because every negative experience affects the whole industry, and it takes time then to overcome that, persuade people that no, that's just a bad example. We can do it well. We know how to do it well. Here's a scheme that if everybody follows this scheme with standard minimum health and safety standards, operational practices, your plant will work. That I think is just so important to ensure that people have confidence in the sector. They have to make them performing professionally. So I think this is building the reputation of the industry.
Thank you. I think you touched upon a really important. I hear that in both cases you're not only building on the industry but also other players. But what we also see is what we hear very often from policymakers is, oh yeah, and we have another industry association coming. They are trying to sell another technology, etc. It's like, how do you build basically the sectoral trust, I guess, also from policymakers. So I think we're coming almost to an end timing-wise, but just we have a few more minutes. Okay, in this case, I ask you very quickly, two parts. Next steps in Brazil, next steps. So share with our public here, our audience, the audience in the room and virtually. You see, like we have some people waving at us. The great story that is going to happen in Brazil and with Making Biogas Happen initiative, that is going to excite players to join and support the movement. That's the first part.
Sure. So the next steps, from my perspective, would be to expand this project. It will be finished this year in December, but we will have a follow-up project for the north and northeast areas of the country. This is very important in terms both socially and economically as well. And this is a demand specifically from the government. So we will be very happy to provide support in that expansion.
Charlotte?
So we will continue to develop the biogas action plans in the states of Paraná and Sao Paulo, as well as in India. But I think I'm pretty excited about the fact that we're also, UNIDO and WB are also in discussions, if we're not allowed, but that's not confidential, but to look at how we can scale together, building on our respective experiences and capabilities, to scale both of the projects that we've been doing into one project, to really get significantly more investment to build on the work we've been doing and the experience has been learned, which is, experience is always irreplaceable, to continue to facilitate the growth of this really important sector.
So I think that's a perfect leeway to Rention One, since both organizations are member in Rention One, and I'm going to have an ask for both of you, to my dear members, you see, like not my members, but Rention One members, is bring those stories to reboot the world with renewables, because I just think the biogas sector really has a value to propose in the energy transition too, and it's very often not recognized. To be honest, Charlotte, you see, like the 1/3 of fossil fuel consumed today in waste is not a number we often hear, and I think it's a very telling number. The dispatchable energy is super important. So I just think there are stories and values to bring basically to the energy transition community. I invite you to use the platform, and I look forward very much to more discussions like these to connect basically the biogas sector with its multiple values to the global space and the climate world, in the environmental world, in the energy world, and so on. Thank you so much for your contributions, and looking forward to further discussions.
very much.